Have you ever wondered what it would be like to play an AD carry in an ARPG like Diablo 4? What this build might lack in area of effect, it more than makes up for in raw damage. Welcome to the Maxroll channel. I'm your host Boiler, and this is my Wind Shear guide for Druids in Diablo 4 Season 4. This build revolves around the reworked aspect of the Calm Breeze, which allows Wind Shear to inflict poison damage over time to all mobs it passes through. Interestingly, this damage over time effect inherits both the Storm and basic skill tags from the initial cast of Wind Shear, which allows for some incredible scalers in the form of Moonrise, Adaptability, and Rapid Aspect, but most importantly the Thunderstruck legendary node. This legendary node prompts us to temper and masterwork damage to distant enemies on nearly all offensive pieces of gear, with the masterworking exceptions being ranks to Quickshift on our amulet and chance for Wind Shear projectiles to cast twice on our weapon. We only need a single masterwork on the latter, as it's impossible to generate more than 2 Wind Shears at a time. If you have an initial temper of at least 59% and a single masterwork crit there on your weapon, it'll upgrade to at least 100% on the way to rank 12. After that, the Wind Shear Druid loves attack speed, and we prioritize it basically on all offensive pieces of gear. Your aim is eventually to reach 80% or more cheat attack speed unbuffed, as the Moonrise aspect will bring you to the 100% cap when in combat. For the helmet, we opt for Godslayer Crown, as its periodic grouping effect is the closest thing this build gets to reliable AoE. We scale both ranks to Debilitating Roar and Debilitating Roar duration on our chest and pants, as well as utilize the Hectic aspect to improve the uptime of this 70% damage reduction. For the Spirit Boons, we'll be opting for Wariness for additional damage reduction from elites, Iron Feather and Swooping Attacks for increased maximum life and attack speed, Bolster for additional Fortified generation from our many defensive skills, and from the last spirit, there really isn't anything useful for us, so just pick whichever you'd like. The skill tree for Wind Shear Druid is relatively straightforward, but one thing that might not be intuitive is that the aspect of the Calm Breeze does not scale off of Wind Shear ranks, so a single point here is just fine. We take Iron Fur on the core skill wheel for additional damage reduction, but primarily to traverse on to the defensive skill wheel, where we take a whole lot of defensive buffs in Cyclone Armor, Bloodhowl, and Debilitating Roar. We also take Ancestral Fortitude and Vigilance for additional resistances and damage reduction. On the Companion skill wheel, the Wolves are there primarily as a meat shield, but we also max out Nature's Reach for a magnificent little damage bonus. On the Wrath skill wheel, we take Trample for Emergency Unstoppable and additional mobility. And we path through Charged Atmosphere to max out Bad Omen for the chance to create Lightning Bolts, which procs our Electrocution glyph in our Paragon Board. The Ultimate skill wheel is reserved primarily for damage passives in Defiance, Natural Disaster, Resonance, Quickshift, and a little bit of defense and mobility in Heightened Senses. We also take Defensive Posture, which has recently been buffed to include damage reduction while fortified, despite it not being displayed here. For the key passive, we're going with Earthsign Strength for the additional maximum life, as well as the damage bonus while healthy. In Season 4, the meta for Paragon boards is to collect as many multipliers as possible, and so you'll often see boards like this with 6 or 7 boards attached. To start off, we have Territorial. Territorial's damage to close targets helps boost our Thunderstruck bonus. Even though we normally play this build at ranged, it's still useful to us for this multiplier. Moving on to the Constricting Tendrils board, we have Keeper for an additional bonus to non-physical damage, i.e. our poison. On Thunderstruck, we take Earth and Sky to help boost the bonuses of damage reduction against vulnerable enemies. On Ancestral Guidance, we opt for Electrocution. Remember I mentioned Bad Omen back in the skills, for an additional 20% multiplier. Moving on to Inner Beast, we go for Bane to increase our poisoning damage over the duration of Calm Breeze's poison. Going over to Survival Instincts, we opt for Tracker for a 40% damage multiplier to our poison, and a little bit of poisoning additive damage, as well as to grab some damage reduction while fortified on this board. And we finish it out with Heightened Malice for an additional 45% multiplier in density. Almost everywhere in between is littered with maximum life nodes to help keep us tankier.